gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's February the 13th, 2024. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And now we got some interesting news to talk about today. Let's start out with the latest byproduct of sending your annoying self into the lab, locking the door, padlocking it ×3, so that you absolutely will not be seen again for at least 6, 7, 8 hours. And voila, you come out with more greatness, fortunately, whenever we do that. And today our subject is the transfer portal. And we've had a running conversation, debate, whatever you want to call it, for many, many months, really going through a couple years on the transfer portal. I've always been a champion of using the portal to try to accelerate the advancement of the program. Here we are after 2 years of Mario Cristobal and a couple years of Manny Diaz, none of which were great seasons. And I'm coming around to the viewpoint you always had. It pains me to admit this, but the transfer portal has not accelerated Miami's development as a program at all. It really hasn't. When you look at the 5-win seasons, the 7-win seasons, not contending for championships. There have been some good players that Miami has gotten in the portal, but the net result for the program has not been what we would have hoped it would be. So here we are going into 2024. And, if you take a look, since Mario came in, they added 11 transfers in 2022, 15 more last year, and this year through the first portal window they've added 9, with admittedly a few more likely to be on deck in the second portal window this spring. So still reasonable use of the transfer portal. But when you look at the teams having success in college football, for example, national championship Michigan, they took 4 transfers in 2021 and 3 in 2022. They put together their national championship team through predominantly traditional recruiting. Alabama took 4 in 2021. They took 5 in 2022, 5 last year. Clemson has taken 2 total transfers the last 4 years. That's probably too far in the other direction, as critics are saying that Dabo Swinney has not adapted to modern-day college football. He needs to use the transfer portal more. Texas, which had a very good season, is another example. They took 6, 7, and 5 transfers the last 3 years. So, Matt, the best programs, for the most part, are not abusing the transfer portal. They're using it for fill-in purposes, but they were also further along than where the Miami Hurricanes are today as we sit here and do this show. So summing it all up, I think that it looks to us like we are going to see Miami move in a direction where they use the transfer portal less. Am I reaching the proper conclusion on that?
I mean, I generally speaking, I mean, listen to you read part of the story. It's like you're reading Goodnight Moon to a bunch of kids. But, I mean, basically the transfer portal is McDonald's. Recruiting is Prime 112, because McDonald's, you get in, you get out, right? Prime 112, you're there for a long time, and it's a lot better, right? I mean, that's the easiest way to remember it, because
that's a great analogy, man. Did you think of that in the 3 minutes that I was setting the stage for you? This Prime 112 McDonald's.
Honestly, I just stopped paying attention to you when you said that I was annoying and locked in some lab, which doesn't even exist. I just stopped paying attention. But here's a
great analogy, though. I got to give you credit.
All right. Well,
I'm giving you a lot of credit on this show
for good reason. I mean, I have great ideas. Just look at me. It's just Eb's greatness. That's what people say when they see me. They say you're annoying, but sometimes you have greatness. Eb, I can't even say Eb greatness. That's how not great I am. So anyway, so like you mentioned Michigan, for instance. So Michigan, just to be clear, they did not build their team in the portal, but this past year they did take a bunch of guys, I think maybe 8 or 9 in the portal, but they built their program not in the portal. Like you mentioned, Alabama, Clemson, Texas, they're not building their program in the portal. Florida State is an outlier. Florida State is building their program in the portal. So I like to use that because basically what Miami's tried to do is what Florida State did, right? Florida State reached an undefeated season, not the championship game or the playoffs, but they reached an undefeated season using the portal. I mean, they took 11, 14, and 12, and they've already taken 15 this year without the second window even here yet. They are consistently in double digits, and Mario's not far behind those numbers. And you can say, wow, look what Florida State did. The reason why most programs don't want to do what Florida State's doing, and Florida State, let's be clear, Florida State's doing this out of desperation. Florida State was where Miami was. They were struggling tremendously. Recruits didn't want to go to their program. So what can you do to solve it? Well, in the NIL era, you can throw some money at a bunch of people and you hope that you hit. And they did. They got a bunch of really, really good transfers that worked out. Now, the reason why that doesn't work long term is, listen, if you have unlimited money forever, it will work. Okay. Programs don't really have that. Right now, programs are diverting money that normally the money from these boosters goes to other things, right? Coaches at some programs are like begging boosters illegally, but they're begging them, give the money to the NIL program. Don't give it to the school. Don't give it to the athletic department to build facilities, better locker rooms. We need the players. It's a race right now to get players and pay players. So when you're paying a player that's a transfer, think about it like in the NFL, right? The first contract for an NFL player, you're saving some salary cap room, right? Those guys are getting money, but they're not breaking the bank with $1.5 million for 1 year that they're in the program. And that's what you're investing in is 1 year and they're gone. They're $1.5 million that could have gone into facilities, the future of the program, gone. When you take a high school player, they're not making $1.5 million unless their last name's Manning. So what FSU is doing, and I'm going to explain this very simply because it is simple. If you take an average, which they've done, of 12 to 13 transfers a year, and let's say on average they're at the program, we'll just say 2 years, because some of them are redshirt freshmen when they come, and a lot of them are seniors, but we'll say they're an average of 2. They're there an average of 2 years. So now you've locked up about 25 scholarship spots over a 2-year span on average out of your 85 scholarship players, and that's consistent. So now you're essentially what you've done is you've penalize yourself. You've put yourself on probation, and your new recruiting scholarship number is now 60. You've gone from 85 recruiting scholarships to 60 recruiting scholarships. So if you think about it that way, that's a big punishment unless those 25 guys are amazing. And what are the chances that those 25 guys who you've got to pay millions of dollars to are going to consistently be amazing? Because once those guys falter, you've got no depth. Because the recruits you're bringing in are saying, man, they're taking transfers to start every year. What am I going to be doing there, right? So it's tough to land top recruiting classes over a long period of time, right? Because that's what's happening. These guys that are coming in, they're going to have to leave at some point if they're going to be backups or whatever. So those guys probably no good in the first place. If they were that good, you don't need to take 12 transfers a year. But on top of that, when you're bringing that many transfers every single cycle, you're never developing the guys. Because let's face it, you can bring in, if you have 60, if you're now on probation and you're taking 60 scholarship guys, that's divided by 4 years, right? If they don't even go to a 5th year. So let's just say they're there for 4 years, which a normal recruit would be. That's an average for a normal recruit, a normal player. 60 divided by 4 is less than 15. So it's 15, right? 15 times 4 is 60. That means you're taking 15 recruits on average a year. 15! Mario's taking 25 to 30. How is Florida State going to compete in recruiting when you can only take 15 a year? Or you got to just jettison a bunch of second-year and third-year guys all the time to try and take 20 and 25 a year. Their average in a normal year is 15. They've put themselves on probation to the point they got to take 15 a year. It's called transfer probation. So that's what Florida State's doing. Florida State's saying, we're just going to keep it going. We're going to keep throwing millions of dollars at the transfer portal, and we're going to hope it works forever. I don't think it will. Which brings us back to Miami. I know I'm talking way too long, but it's a little complicated. Miami has followed the Florida State pattern so far. But now they're at that point where they have to make a decision. Because as it is right now, you already got to cut, I think, 9 guys that are going to be on scholarship this spring. And you got to cut them because there's 10 guys coming in the fall, in the summer. and you can't start a semester with over 85 scholarship players on your team, which means they got to cut guys because they've got, like I said, 10 more guys coming in, and they're 9 over the limit right now. They'll find those 9. But when you read the story this morning, there's just not a lot of fat, because if you look at the scholarship eligibility tracker we have, there's a handful of guys that are juniors and seniors that you can say, okay, I'm not going to name them because it's rude, but you can say, okay, I can see we don't really need those guys. They're not going to really do much other than scout team, third team, whatever. Those guys, fine. But there will be 4 guys, 3, 4, maybe even 5 or 6 guys if they have to take another transfer offensive lineman, another transfer receiver, could be more, that will be in their second year at Miami. Maybe some will be redshirt sophomores, third years, that sort of thing. That will be gone. And for you to convince me that somebody who's here 2 years, that Mario Cristobal signed, that they know after 2 years what he's going to become as a senior. You remember those teams at Virginia Tech that had loaded with seniors and redshirt seniors that we couldn't beat them those years? That won't exist at programs like Miami and Florida State with recruits who came up through the system. It can exist with transfer portal guys who are cast-offs or money grabbers, either of which I'm not a fan of, because you're just throwing tons of money for one-year guy, or you're taking guys that nobody else, that basically, when I say cast-off, they had an attitude problem. They were going to be a backup anyway, and Miami wants them for depth. I don't need that. Even if they're seniors at this point, I don't need that, because this Miami program now is at the point where when you've got, I'm not going to add it up, I think it was 40% of the roster now is first and second year players, if not more. Those guys need to stay. And those guys need to become seniors here. And that's how you develop a championship program. You hit in recruiting, you develop them, and they win championships. That's how you win a championship. So Mario can't keep taking transfers if he's going to do that. Because if he takes another 10 transfers next year, those guys that should be seniors in 2 years won't be here. You can't keep doing it. He's going to be putting himself on a self-imposed transfer probation if he keeps taking 10 guys after this year.
Well,
and
I think
that's why the story is like this. This cannot be continued if they're going to follow the Matt Shodell formula of success. So I would say maybe 3 or 4 transfers next year and live with it, because either you got it in recruiting and you developed them, or you suck as a coach and you got to go. Those are your 2 choices. Not, hey, the guys didn't develop, we got the wrong guys, we're going to bring in more transfers and pay them a fortune. That's not going to work long term.
Well, I think that they really want to develop these young guys.
I can't believe you didn't interrupt me. I tried to go as long as possible. You didn't interrupt me and get yelled at.
I didn't interrupt you, but listen, I think they want to develop the young guys.
I think the gummies are working on you, Gary. They really are. They took the edge off. It's really working for you. I like it.
But yeah, they really want to develop the young guys. There's no question about it. But you're still in a little bit of a conundrum here, because you're not winning anything with all freshmen. And what did we say? I think there's like 37 freshmen. Let me look that up real quick. 17 and 19 is 36.
While you're looking it up, by the way, Michigan State. Remember Michigan State when they took all those transfers and went 11-2? Guess what's happened to them since then? They've gone 9-15, and they've kept taking double-digit transfers every year. You'll find a success story here and there, but it doesn't last, man. I'm telling you, Florida State, if they keep doing this, they're going to be in big trouble over the next 5 to 10 years. I'm telling you, it's not sustainable.
So you got 37 freshmen on the team coming into this season, the freshmen or redshirt freshmen. It's like you want to develop those guys, and you've had 2 good recruiting classes, but it's very hard to win 10, 11, 12 games with relying on this many underclassmen. So it's kind of like a catch-22. But like Matt says, now these guys are going to be transitioning to third-year players. And at that point, I think Matt is correct that we're going to see less transfers coming into the program because it will make sense unless you just totally failed in recruiting. And we don't think that's the case. I mean, you've had 2 top 5 classes. So this should be like a hump year, like a transition year in that regard. But the key is Miami's got to win, man. It's like you can't just keep winning 7 games. And we've talked so much about the financial support that's going into the program and how much money the university has invested in football. I mean, they want to start seeing a return on investment. These guys are football fans like all of us out here, no doubt about it. But before they were football fans, they were bean counters and CEOs and guys that, accountants and guys that look after the finances of the university. And at some point, they're going to want a return on investment, and that ROI isn't coming without big time seasons, both from a spiritual standpoint, a mental standpoint, and a financial standpoint. So this is a big year coming up. The schedule's right. Got to put up double-digit wins this year and keep everybody on board and show the progress that's being made. And then you can transition away a little bit from the transfer portal and count on all these great recruits that you feel that you have been assembling in your traditional recruiting classes.
By the way, you know how bad the schedule is? When Miami's over-under for wins, according to FanDuel, it's the same as Florida State and Clemson's, but Clemson and Florida State are way ahead of Miami in the national title odds. That tells you everything you need to know about how easy everybody thinks Miami's schedule is. It's not just us. Miami's 9.5 win over-under, same as Clemson, same as FSU, the top in the entire ACC, because Miami's got like the easiest non-conference schedule of all time. It's embarrassing for Miami. Yeah, we'll play anybody. We'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime. If your name is, Florida A&M or who else? Ridiculous teams are playing this year.
Blake James thought he was at Boston College already when he put this schedule together.
Yeah. Oh, it's not Radakovic's fault, by the way. No, it's not Radakovic's fault, but it's a joke. It's a joke.
It's light one game. It's light one good out of conference game.
Yeah, the home schedule is just awful. I mean, good luck getting people to buy season tickets with this home schedule. They'll buy one game, and that's it.
Yeah, they'll make up for it in 2025, but this year is just brutal. So, but anyway, yes, we think we are at that place.
That's what they should do. They should sell 2-year season ticket packages. That's how they can make up for it. That's genius.
Brilliant.
Genius.
What a brilliant idea. Oh my God, Matt Shodell for director.
Call Dan Radakovich. Tell him it's a Matt Shodell season ticket package. Genius. Why don't they do that?
Please,
let me tell you something
from us.
I'm serious. How good an idea. If someone said to Dan Radakovich tomorrow, hey, Dan, people aren't going to buy any season tickets this year, but if we do a 2-year season ticket package and everyone knows, all the games next year, the big teams are coming here, and they would sell. I predict they would double their season tickets for this year if they did a 2-year package option. You don't have to do it, but I'm not even a marketing guy. If they start doing a 2-year season ticket package,
2 years at one time.
If they do 2-year season ticket package, I'm quitting CaneSport. I'm going to go work for Dan Radakovich because.
But what would you give them? What would you give them as in return for taking 2 years at one time?
You give them. That's a great question. A T-shirt. I'll give them a T-shirt.
A CaneSport.com T-shirt, right?
CaneSport.com T-shirt.
All right. So anyway,
discount, Gary. You get a discount. Hello. What do you think you get?
So transition should be taking place here. We're expecting a lot of these young players to develop over the course of this next, 10-month cycle that goes through spring practice, fall camp, off-season workouts, fall camp, and then the 2024 season when they should be able to play a lot of guys if these games go the way they should go. We should see a football program developing through recruiting, and then they won't need the transfer portal as much. So we take a look at that today. Make sure you guys check out that story on the website this morning. All right, a few other things, though, for us to talk about today. A ton of recruiting coverage. We had Steven up at the Under Armour Orlando camp, talking to a bunch of kids, getting a gauge on where they are, watching them and evaluating how good they actually are. So we're going to be pounding you with those stories, not just this morning, but over the next couple of days. Azubi as well has been on the recruiting trail. And one of the stories we have today is on a Central Florida kid by the name of Vernell Brown III, a wide receiver that Miami has been recruiting very hard. He is a 4-star from Wildwood, Florida, Jones High School. And he gives us a look at just where Miami stands in his recruitment. And one of the coaches on staff, everyone's always asking us, grade the staff, who's doing good on the staff. One of the guys on the staff that seems to be doing really well in recruiting, Matt, is wide receiver coach Kevin Beard. Miami seems to be in the running for just about every top receiver within reason in this part of the country. KB is a personable guy, just seems to be hitting it off, Matt, the way that I'm sure Mario Cristobal hoped he would when he hired him. With the asterisk being that he missed, he didn't get the big fish. He didn't. He was not able to get Jeremiah Smith, and that was the obviously the biggest test that KB was tasked with since he came to the U. But for the most part, when you look at the Nikar, JoJo Trader in this year's class, and then you look at where Miami's going in 2025, where there's a lot of really good receivers here in South Florida and the southern part of the state. Things are looking up a little bit for Miami Matt at receiver, and KB does deserve a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I think he's a great coach. He's got a good personality, gets along with the kids, and he's a great technical coach. There's nothing there. I like to complain about people, and if I could tell you that there was something wrong with Kevin Beard, I would tell you. I think he's a great coach. That's it. I mean, I got nothing else to say. When I have good things to say, I'm not going to say a lot. I'm just saying they're really good. That's it. He's a really good coach.
Yeah. So KB is one you can feel good about. We talked to Vernell Brown III today, so check that story out on the website. If Mario Cristobal is the coach, you know that Miami will be very serious about recruiting offensive linemen, and there is a serious battleground right now up in the northeast part of the state, Jacksonville Reigns High School, with 4-star offensive tackle Solomon Thomas. I don't know why, but he committed to Florida State in late December, and that was a surprise to a lot of people. I mean, he hadn't dropped the list of schools. He hadn't been indicating a commitment was near, and he just committed to Florida State. And I'm sure Miami, like many, were just sitting there going, wow, what the heck's that all about? But the Canes have not stopped recruiting Solomon Thomas intensely. We catch up with him today, and he talks a little bit about that and just where his recruitment really stands. And so you guys can check that story out on the website today. In the meantime, Miami continues to recruit an offensive tackle that they actually received a commit from recently, and that's a 3-star tackle, Lamar Williams from Quincy, Florida. We caught up with him also in the last couple days, and we got a story on that on the website this morning as well. Tight end is a position to watch in this recruiting cycle. There's at least a dozen out there. Miami would probably take any of them. Just an unbelievable year for recruiting tight ends, probably better than anything we've ever seen at that position. So, I mean, on one hand, you're like, what the heck? I mean, they barely used the tight end last year. I think that's going to change this year. I think Shannon Dawson will be under a mandate to use the tight ends considerably more this year. I think also when you take a look at what's going on around football and the Super Bowl, for instance, when you watch like the 49ers and to a lesser extent the Chiefs, but teams are using a lot of motion. They're not running complicated plays. The plays are no different than they've ever been, but they're making them look more complicated with a lot of different motions that they're adding to the equation. I wouldn't be shocked if Shannon Dawson doesn't try to do a little bit more of that this year. More motion, get the tight ends involved. Listen, the offense didn't achieve at the level that was intended last year. Let's not kid ourselves. We all know that. Tyler Van Dyke took the lion's share of the blame for it. I said all along, I don't know that that's fair. I was not overwhelmed by what I was seeing around Tyler Van Dyke, from a scheme, play calling standpoint. I'm expecting Shannon Dawson to come back better this year. He has to, must come back better this year. He's got a quarterback, no excuses, Cam Ward, more skill players in the program. But circling back to what I was talking about initially, Miami's recruiting a lot of tight ends, which I think shows us an inclination to start using them more. And one of them is a kid out of Buford, Georgia, by the name of Hayden Bradley. He's receiving offers from pretty much every big school in the country. Ole Miss, Michigan, Oregon, Texas A&M, Florida, the Canes. Just everyone is hammering Hayden Bradley. We catch up with him and talk to him a little bit about where Miami stands in his recruitment. Also on tap today, basketball is the season's kind of falling apart, Matt. I mean, it's you wrote a little bit of an opinion piece that's on the website today talking about how it's convenient to say injuries are the reason why they have struggled. But you, man, again, very astutely point out here that this team's had many issues from day one, and it goes far beyond just injuries.
Look, my memory is not very good, but how Jim Larrañaga doesn't remember that his fully healthy team, fully bench healthy team, lost by 22 and 27 points in December and didn't beat anybody of worth mentioning before the ACC schedule is beyond me. He even said yesterday on the ACC conference call, like, ever since the ACC schedule began, we've had all these injuries, da-da-da. Last week, he told us, imagine what we could have accomplished if we didn't have any injuries. Like, yeah, I can imagine. It'll be pretty much the same because you were bad in December when you were healthy. You lost by 22 points to a good Kentucky team. You lost by 27 points to Colorado. Like, not even competitive in either of those games with a fully healthy team. He bemoans how other teams somehow magically have 13 scholarship players. Apparently, he's on a self-imposed Jim Larrañaga -2 scholarship count because Miami has 11 scholarship players. Like, whose fault is that, Jim? I love Jim Larrañaga to death, but it makes me crazy when he makes excuses that make no sense. Don't tell us how great your team is when it's healthy, when you got blown out in only 2 big December games when they were fully healthy. And don't bemoan how all these other teams show up with 2 extra scholarship players because they recruited 2 extra scholarship players and you chose not to. Like, I don't understand what he must think the media is dumb, like, which we are. But
I think he's just struggling with this team this year.
But then say that, don't make stuff up and be like, oh, look how great it would have been if everyone's healthy. Because no, you weren't great when everyone was healthy. And don't say, oh, other teams have 2 more scholarship players. What am I supposed to do? Well, recruit 2 more scholarship players. How about, I don't like, he's a great coach. He definitely knows what he's doing. And he's battled through more back injuries than people even realize. He's got nothing left to even operate on. He told me it's bone on bone. He's literally in pain all the time, trying to stand up and whatever. He's putting his life on the line because he loves basketball. But he tends to get somewhat simplistic and long-winded with answers, which makes some reporters crazy. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. But he's a little too simplistic when he tells people that injuries are why his team's losing games and that losing 2 scholarship players is why he ranks, 345th out of 351 teams in bench scoring. Like, somehow that's not his own fault. I mean, like, does he think we're that dumb? And I don't want to. I love the guy, so I'm not going to hammer on him anymore. But, like, that's ridiculous. Don't try to tell us that somehow it's the fault of something out of his control, because it was all his control. It was all his decisions. He put the roster together, and it didn't work. Whether he had the injuries or not, they were getting blown out in December before any injuries. And yeah, the injuries didn't help in the ACC, and maybe they'd have 2 more wins. Maybe they'd have 2 more wins, in my opinion, if everyone was 100% healthy. But, like, Wooga Poplar was playing selfish basketball before he got hurt, and now he, like, literally is still walking in a boot and then playing in the games. So, like, you can't convince me that he would have had a different attitude on the court, And, like, he needs to somehow Wooga needed to figure out that being a team player is better than trying to do everything himself all the time. Like, I've never seen a Miami team since Larrañaga's been here that tries to do as much by itself. Like, you pass the ball to any of them, they try to penetrate, and they have the ball forever. And, like, then they realize, oh, I don't have a shot, and then they pass it. And you see these other teams just quickly around the perimeter. You double here, you hit the open guy, bam, bam, and you're in the corner for an open 3. Like, you don't see Miami doing that stuff. I mean, that North Carolina game, as badly as North Carolina played, because guess what? They did play badly. The only guy on that team that played any good was RJ Davis. The rest of their team was terrible. Terrible. North Carolina played a terrible game. I was there. I was watching from the press area, which is, like, in the roof. That's where they put us, in the roof. I'm not even joking, okay? Look into the farthest, darkest corner where, like, if Godzilla's going to come attack the arena, we'll be the first ones dead. That's where we are. We're up there. The flying monster will get us first. That's how high up we are. But you got a great view of what's going on. And the North Carolina ball movement and sharing of the ball was remarkable compared to Miami's as poorly as I thought North Carolina played. And Baycott, North Carolina looked like it had no interest in even playing that game, by the way. They were so flat the entire game. Baycott looked like he could have cared less. I mean, like, I don't know what Norchad was trash talking him about, but like somehow Norchad got I've never seen this guy a technical foul when the other guy was just ignoring him. You know how hard that is to do?
Yeah.
You know how hard that is to do? To get a technical foul on a guy who didn't even want to play? Who was ignoring you the whole game and just letting you go to the basket? I mean, that's all Baycott did. He let Norchad go to the basket every time he wanted to. Like, somehow Norchad got a technical in that situation. I mean, the whole thing is just, it's mind-boggling. Nobody wants to hear about basketball, but people like to hear me complain. They love it when I complain. This is my DNR. It doesn't stand for do not resuscitate. What does it stand for, Gary? Remind everybody? Daily negative rant. It's Matt's daily negative rant. And it was about basketball today. And it's not daily. It's pretty much every minute, every hour.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he misjudged certain things, and they're getting like very little out of their bench, and it's just been a disastrous year, unfortunately, because they did have some talent here. Like Keyshawn George, they're saying might go in the NBA first round despite being a bit player on this team, like, which would be just insane. I hope he comes back one more year, but like, it's not like they didn't have talent, but like the guys with talent couldn't be playing worse. I mean, Wooga Poplar, he's horrendous. Like, you can say, oh, he turned an ankle earlier in the year or whatever, but like, come on, like he is like really not a very good player right now, and he was supposed to be the best player on the team. So I don't want to pick on just Wooga. I mean, everyone's having substandard years, but I mean, Bensley Joseph's been horrible this year, in my opinion.
That's true.
Nigel Pack's been very inconsistent. The thing that bothered me about Nigel is I'm watching the North Carolina game, and it looked to me like he was playing harder than he had the entire year. And that's unacceptable. Like, all these games are important. I just think that maybe a little bit of a hangover from making the Final Four. Maybe they just assumed things that they shouldn't have assumed, that they were going to just win games. But it has been a rough road, and it's probably too late for Miami basketball for this year. Maybe they'll make the NIT, but the big question is who's coming back next year and how many transfers they're going to be able to add to the equation, because they do have a good recruiting class. So we've got a few basketball stories on the website for those of you that are interested in basketball. We understand it does include everybody, but we do try to be an equal opportunity provider here at CaneSport.com and take care of everybody's passions and interests. Well, that's going to conclude it today for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you so much for starting out your day with us. If you are on YouTube right now and you like this show and this channel, hit your subscribe and like buttons. It does help us with the algorithms in improving our audience. If you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, let me throw that special up on the screen. You use the code CANES1. Go to CaneSport.com. Take advantage of the special offer. You'll get your first 2 months for $1 instead of 1 month for $1. Get an extra month for $1. Use the code CANES1 and come on board. We hope you'll enjoy our website and stay with us forever. But that should help you out a little bit in getting indoctrinated into CaneSport.com. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thanks again, everyone, for watching, and we will see you next time.